Hi there, this is GroovingNG and welcome back to my channel. So today we are in Renoise again and I'm going to do a sort of continuation from the last video about drum breaks. But we're actually going to start, I'm going to take another drum break and I'm going to show you how you can use, in this case I'm going to use the amen break and I'm going to kind of extract the groove from the amen break and then try and kind of replicate an amen style drum break with another one. I've got this drum break here which I've just found. I do a lot of sampling and I find these random breaks online. First step here is to actually chop up this break, and then I'm gonna do this kind of gate to tempo technique we were exploring last time, where you can speed up the drum breaks to your tempo without actually time stretching them. So I'm going to do this quickly now and just chop this up at all the hits first of all. Right, so I've put all these slices in and I've taken a minute and just made sure they're pretty clean and where they need to be. And then I'm going to go render slices to phrase, and then I need to put my tempo up. And I'm going to put just trigger that phrase in the main window. Okay, so I'm just going to render this break out and render to sample, and then now we've got our drum break at 170. So it's already got a nice kind of drum and bassy groove, but we're going to go in and I'm just going to normalize this, and now I've got to slice it all over again, so it is a little bit tedious having to slice it twice, but once you've done this, then it's kind of there for you. So I've sliced it up again, and now I can reprogram this drum beat however I like. For this method, we're actually going to keep all the slices nice and short. They're all going to cut each other off, and we're just going to get really detailed with our programming. So the next step is to go and get an amen break. I've actually got a version of this, which I've already sliced. What we're going to do now is render this amen to slices, render to phrase. Okay, so what's happened here is we've got the amen break groove now, and you can see it all kind of mapped out here nicely. And I want to kind of impart that on this other sample. So one thing you can do while I'm here is you can actually just take this delay column. If I duplicate this pattern, and I can actually get rid of the delay column, and then now I've got an amen which is being quantized to the grid. So I can hear a couple of the beats need nudging around. And now I've got an amen which is bang on the grid. So you can actually kind of quantize in Renoise just by removing that delay column and then just making sure all the beats are in the right places. One of the good things to do that is it means when you chop it back up and put it on the grid in Renoise, everything's going to be like lining up really solidly, and you're going to get very clean chops. You're not going to have any of these areas where you're like your snares hitting a bit early for the break. So it is good to do that sometimes, and it's really about personal preference of if you love to have the original groove of the amen, or you just want something a bit more quantized. So that's really down to you, but that's a kind of quick and easy way to quantize in Renoise. For this purpose, I'm actually trying to extract the real groove of the amen and put it on my own drum break. So the idea now is to take this pattern, so I'm going to copy that and bring it to the main window just because it all makes sense. And I've got to, when I'm pasting it, I have to have this delay column on, and then it's going to paste all the delay values in. Otherwise, it just pastes it without the delay values. I'm just going to make sure it's triggering the right instrument, which is actually 0.1. So if I trigger 0.1 on all these samples, I can actually just copy that little bit and just go and paste it all the way down. Now it's a case of kind of figuring out the groove. So one thing I've got to remember is that my lines per beat is different in here than it was in that amen break. If I go back to the phrases, the lines per beat here is 16. So I've got to come in my main window and put my lines per beat up to 16. And then now I've got to try and figure out what the actual chops are from the amen. So if I just go bit by bit, that's a kick. So the amen, if I maybe put this one next to it and trigger the amen. So it's going. kick, and then snare, kick, kick, snare, and then it has the shuffly bit here. So it's kind of going hi-hat, ghost snare, hi-hat, ghost snare. I think it's kind of what the shuffle is. Boom, boom, snare, chicka, 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 chicka. This is not doing anything, but what note is this in the original Amen? This note here, I can actually go and check in this groove and just figure out what it is if I just find it here. This is the note I'm looking for. If I go copy that into this first column here, so this is the Amen column, and one thing I can actually do is kind of just Command P and just paste that instrument the whole way through, and it means I don't have to go through and like put it in one by one. It's a little bit less neat. Oh, I've got to take off the phrase editor. And I obviously didn't put the delay column in either, so I didn't bring the delay notes in. So let's do that again. And then I just want to check what this... I just press enter and I can just preview that one line that I'm clicking on. So that's actually got that's a kick with a hat on it. So let's see if I've got a kick with a hat on it. Back to my instrument. I think I do somewhere. There's a kick with a hat on it, so I can take that, and then if I mute this one again, that's a little kick with a hat. It's kind of like a little roll, a little kick, isn't it? It's a little kick of some sort. I don't really have, but I could take a kick and then just take it down in volume. That sounds better. Da 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 da. Dung, 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 dung. And the last two notes are hat, shuffle, hat, ghost. So let's go and find a hat, and then a little ghosty. So what I've done is I've got the Amen here on the left side, and I've got my break on the right side, and I'm soloing the tracks. You can do that by just right clicking on the play button, or I can use the hotkey, which is Command / I think it is, and I'm just soloing them, and then I'm pressing enter to listen to the chop on the Amen, which is a snare there, and then I'm going to my break and I'm programming in a hit to match the one of the Amen, and you can kind of pick apart any break this way. I've got exactly the same groove in the delay column of my Snake Eyes break as the original Amen has. And so now when you put it all together, you've got this kind of nice rolling Amen style break. And some breaks sound better with this than others do. This one's quite choppy already. The Amen's got a lot more reverb and room sound. And I can now take this whole break and I can render it out to render to sample, and I can re-slice it again. And then I can do my kind of normal method where I do the long slices, where all the slices play through each other and chop each other off by putting mono on and clicking on this kind of slice button here. Bam, bam, bam. Bum, bum, bam, bum, bam. Okay, so one thing is that the hi-hat here is just sounding super repetitive because I've only got kind of two different variations of a hat, and they're kind of just really smacking all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a new modulation lane here and assign the hi-hats. And I'm going to put a pitch on, and I'm just going to randomize it with like an LFO like this. And it's going to have a really low amplitude, so the pitch is just going to subtly go up and down. So you don't really want to hear it, but you just want it kind of acting there. One thing you can do is just decrease the pitch range from 12 to 1, and then you kind of have more scope. Okay, so what I've done now is I've created a whole bunch of phrases from the kind of Snake Eyes processed drum break, and I've kept it all kind of in the same light and just kind of done some kind of standard Renoise drum and break programming in here. I'll just play a couple of these for you now. So pretty standard stuff. I haven't done any crazy effects or anything like that. That's going to come next. So in the last video, I did this kind of macro break instrument where I created all these macros for the instrument, and I set this all up, and then so it's all done in the effects area here, and I've taken a bit of time to kind of map them so when I've got these controls off, they turn the actual plugins off as well, so I'm not doing comb filtering or I'm not doing filtering when I don't want it. And there's a link to this stuff on my website, so if you want to grab it, you can get it there. With this blank version, what you can do is just take these chops here. I'm actually just going to render the slices out now. So to get my samples out of this Snake Eyes track and into my Amen track, I'm firstly going to rename them, and I'm just going to go Alt 01, and they're all going to go and kind of do C to A. And then I'm actually going to have to export all the samples, so it does get a little bit confusing, this workflow. And I can come to this blank Amen massive kind of macro that we set up and then drag all of the samples in there. Now the problem is that the kind of A's are coming after the C's, so you've got to remember to kind of drag these over. So there's a lot of steps in this workflow, I'm afraid. And what I actually want to do is line it up. So they're actually starting from C0, so we can go back down to C0. Now one thing I do have to do is set up this hi-hat macro here on pitch, wasn't it? And if I go there, I want to copy it and come back here, paste it in pitch, put that down to 1. And then I just want to put hits number F sharp, E, and C sharp. C sharp, E, and F sharp. Then I'm going to have to copy this volume envelope. I'm going to have to copy it to this hi-hat track, and then I've also got to map gate in the same way. So I've got to map it to hold and decay again, and then I can just copy these parameters over, which is going to mean when I gate the track, the hi-hat's actually going to respond from the second track, and then the drum break on the first one is still going to work fine. So this means when I gate it using this trick, both the hi-hat track and the drum break track are going to gate properly, but then I still can have this pitch trick that I did on the hi-hat. So I'm basically just trying to merge all of this into one instrument now. What I'm actually going to have to do is come to my selection here, and I've actually got to change this instrument from 2 to 3. So the easiest way to do this is to select this and just put a 3 in there, Command C, Command P, and just paste it all the way through. And you can just go through everything like this, and so that's not too bad. So the level of this instrument is weird because these were all +6 and I haven't added the 6 dB here. So rather than do it there, I could just add 6 dB in this area. Cool, so now I've taken all the work we did before. I could have just made it in this blank Amen instrument from the start, but I wasn't really thinking about it. It might have been a better way to do it. Anyway, what I've done is I've taken the new chops of this drum break and I've brought them into this crazy macro instrument, and now it means when I play with all these parameters again, one thing I haven't done actually is the hi-hats aren't responding to pitch. So in the way that pitch has an operand here in this window, and it's responding to 12. So what I've got to do actually is put this back up to 12, take the amplitude way down and do my original idea, and then put an operand in after, and then map operand there, which is going to mean that pitch is now going to work for both of them. And we've now got back into that macro instrument with everything working. So the next step is to do that big recording again, creating the big macro instrument. Okay, so I've got all those slices done. I'm just going to go through some of them and just check them in Audio Finder. Okay, so there's just a few weird ones at the beginning, and So I've got 58 slices there, and then the original break has 14 slices. And I'm just seeing kind of how much I've got. So 72. So I've basically got 50 more chops that I want to make of different effects. So one really cool thing, and this is where we're going to kind of get into taking this to the next level. So I've kind of got us to the stage we were in the last video now, just with a new drum break. What we're going to do now is create some new patterns. Let's go, and this is going to call the tool time stretch. We're now going to use that time stretching granular technique that I've shown you in my old time stretching video, and I did talk about it a little bit in the last video as well. And we're going to use that to kind of create more effects out of all these breaks we've just done. I will include the time stretching template and the blank macro template on my website, so you can link them in the video. This is just super cool here. So what I'm going to do is I just load up my time stretched effects. What's so easy is I can just drag all of these slices into this effects window, and I've now got them all in here. What's so cool about this granular one is I don't really have to do any other work, and I've already got these affected slices in here, and I can start triggering them. If I come into the phrase editor, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mess with this lines per beat section, and I'm going to mess with the semitone pitch for the whole instrument just with my mouse, and record that as I trigger different slices, and you'll hear you get some insane effects. So once again, I'm going to load up Twisted Wave, which is what I use to record all this stuff. It just records the output of my audio interface, and I just hit record there. And so anything I trigger now, if I go back, you can see it's just going to record. If I select this one, is kind of my favorite one, which has got 256 slices. So this one, every single line is mapping perfectly to one re-trigger in Renoise. If I go down a level, you see it's missing a slice here. Every other slice is being triggered, and on this one it's kind of doubling up. So this is kind of the perfect one, I think, for this time stretching method to get it sound as kind of clean as you can. And I'm just going to start messing around and hitting a few keys. That sounded super weird, but if I pull this way down, you get like a bass line out of that. And if I turn the pitch down as well, let's go to about 4. Sounds super cool. Ooh, it's like spaceship sounds. Super cool there, and just kind of mess with them. Let's go to some other chops maybe. Okay. So too much. Let's go somewhere between kind of 10 and 4. I'm going to go and chop that up in a minute, but I also want to show you this other method. Now, you can just do this in Renoise, and what it is creating a loop and kind of modulating the end time of the loop. And so if I go and just set up a recording channel again, and now I can go and put loops on, and I can kind of trigger. Put a loop on. Cool, and so even though the timing of that is going to be quite random, you can kind of chop that up later on to get it to sound right. Okay, so I've got all this new audio and Logic now, and now I've got kind of to go through this slightly tedious task of chopping out all the bits that I like, that I can then use as effects in my project. I only need about 50 samples, so I'm just going to kind of take the best 50 out of these 2 long sections of all the effects I've created. Okay, so here we are. Now, it is quite a long workflow just to get to this point. It does take a lot of work, and some of it's quite tedious, chopping up. Like, it's fun doing the recordings, but then all the editing does take time. This won't be a technique for everyone, but when you get to this stage and it's all done, and I've now got 118 chops of the original instrument, the Mega Breaks effects, which I did in my last video, And then I've also done the time stretch effects, the kind of Ackizer style granular time stretch effects, and I've done Ratchet style effects when I'm pulling the end time of the sample in, I'm looping it and pulling the end time in, and then creating effects that way. And so I've suddenly got all of this kind of material and ingredients that I can use to make really sick drum breaks, because, you know, it's just all there for you now. All I've got to really worry about in Renoise is programming. If I just show you a couple of the kind of the effects of how it all turned out, I've obviously got all my kind of phasey filtered the effects when I did the big recording of using the macros in Renoise. The Ratchet effects sound kind of like this. Got some snare rolls there. And then the time stretch cuts are really cool. Some of these are awesome. Loads of cool, like delay, weird, funky stuff. Anyway, it's all there now. So I can actually just quit Logic, come back into Renoise, and it's almost better to kind of start a new project with this. So I'm just going to go new song now, and I'm not going to use a template. I'm just going to save this old one and just drag all of the cuts into from my window here. I'm going to take all my cuts and just drag them to a sampler, and we're all in. And so it's like the fun bit is finally arrived, and you can just get to work and program yourself up some kind of banging drum beats. There's so much scope for expanding on this technique, but it's really about kind of separating the sound design from the programming stage. And it means once you actually get to doing your drum break, you can just go really ham on like just putting in the slices and triggering the different sounds from the sampler. So I've kind of gone ahead and I've actually done a different drum break that I used in this tutorial. I did this kind of last week, and I kind of made a track using all these techniques and try to kind of like really get it as polished as I can get it. So I'm going to leave you with that now, and I hope this has been a good expansion of the technique. I'm going to try and chop this up so I don't repeat myself too much and just kind of give you the juicy bits. So I'm going to leave you rolling with this tune, and I'll catch you next time on my channel. Peace.
I shouldn't have come here. I know that now. It won't work. I know that too. It can't work because I know too many things. Thank